I received a call about a week and a half ago, first thing in the morning, from a number I didn't recognize on my work line. And I answered it, and a lady with a very strong accent proceeded to explain to me that she had a 4-acre lot and was looking for an agent to sell it for her. Now, all of this took multiple minutes of me trying to understand and ask questions because I couldn't understand her very well. But that's not completely uncommon. So as we were talking, I tried to ask identifying questions as best I could. What's your motivation for selling? Are you moving? When did you purchase the lot? And at this point, it wasn't completely out of place. The only thing that was a little out of place is she couldn't really give me a firm answer on who had referred her to me. While I do work those kind of more rural areas, it's not as often as somebody will just reach out to me out of the blue that hasn't been referred to me by someone I know personally. I got off the phone with her. She told me she was going to text me some of the details about the lot so I could look it up and give her kind of a market analysis and help her figure out listing price and all of that. Got off the phone and I walked out and I looked at my daughter and I said, well, that was a little odd. Okay, red flag number 1. When I looked up the property, the vacant lot property that she was wanting to sell, the primary owner name and address matched what she had told me. So I said, okay, this all checks out. So me being me, and this is what I do for a living, I immediately responded and said, hey, while I'm running this market outlook for your lot, I'm happy to run numbers for your Louisville property as well, especially if you're moving out of state and you need to sell that home also. I'm happy to run those numbers for you. To which she replied pretty quickly and said, no, thank you for the offer, but I'm not selling that property at this time. Understandable. I have a lot of clients that move out of state. They keep their primary residence and rent it out or something like that. So I wasn't too bothered by that. It was fine. No problem. Move ahead. I also, on a whim, I was like, it's 45-minute drive. It's a beautiful day. I'm going to just go drive out, put my eyeballs on this lot and make sure that I really know what I'm dealing with. I drove 45 minutes out to this property. Everything looked like it checked out. Took a couple pictures just for my own reference later on and drove home. And I noticed that there was a chain on the gate. So I get home and move forward with sending her all of the information. I sent her a CMA, told her kind of based on comparable sales nearby, I really think that we're probably within X amount of dollars range. But she called me again and said, can you explain to me how your commissions work? So I explained to her kind of where we're at right now with seller's agent commission and buyer's agent commission and how all that's shaken out. To which she said, okay, well, let me think about this and I will get back to you shortly with whether or not I want to move forward. No problem. No red flags there. That's a normal conversation that I deal with sellers. So about 2 hours later, she texted me and she said, we'd like to move forward with listing the property at this price and I will pay commission. Okay, that sounds great. I'm going to prepare all this listing agreement so that we can get this going. We'll get it live on the market next week. We'll have the photographer go out and take pictures. She wanted to sell it as soon as possible. She told me she was moving out of state for work and they just wanted to get it sold. And again, no red flags there, not a problem. There was something that I just couldn't shake because when I sent her the listing agreement, before I sent it, I said, I would love to come and sit with you in person, meet with you both, talk through how this process works, and I'm happy to bring the paperwork with me and we can walk through it together. And she called me and said, I'm not here, we're in Alabama. Now, at this point, conversing with her on the phone has been a challenge because her accent is so thick and her English is not 100%. And so, which is not abnormal, but it just means that I'm paraphrasing this like it's a super easy transmission of communication, when in reality it took a few minutes just to even understand that this was what she was saying. All of these things were like, that's a little bit odd, but then it's also completely understandable and justifiable, right? You have somebody that has lived here for a long time. They bought a lot several years ago, but now all of a sudden they have to relocate for work, so they're not going to build on it, so they need to sell it. And I just couldn't shake that something was a little bit off. And I think for myself, I kept talking through all these things going, I feel like this should be a red flag, but then at the same time, it's completely justifiable. There are scenarios or things that make sense. So they signed the listing agreement. I sent out the photographer, but since I couldn't shake this red flag like feeling, I was like, there's something that I could flush this out real quick, and that would be to tell her that my brokerage needs IDs on file, and that way my brokerage can have them on file. The title company will need them also, which is true. And she said, no problem. We don't have a driver's license, but we do have US passports. I said, great. Not really thinking anything of it at the time. Great, that's perfect. Send me your passport copies, that would be great. So she did within a few minutes. Names matched up with names that they had given me. Again, these are very unique names. It's not, John Smith. So at this point, I'm like, man, this would take an awful lot of work if this was a scam. Like, this has been very well thought out. And so I reached out to the title company and I said, hey, here's the situation. I'm still about 50-50 that this might be fraudulent. I've never dealt with anything like this, but will you please run all this information? Pull whatever you can find, ownership history, anything like that. Everything on paper is matching up, but I just couldn't shake it. And so I asked this seller if she had any documentation from when they purchased the lot, because it had been purchased in 2017. She said, no, I'm sorry, we don't have any documentation for, from the title company, no survey. So the buyer is going to need to pay for the survey, which again, added to everything. I was like, little red flag. Like, when you're selling a lot of times you either have the survey from when you bought it, which you should have all of that paper somewhere, or tell me what title company you closed at so we can go dig it up. Where were we at here? Okay, so no survey, no documentation. And at this point I was like, man, I have the photographer has all my photos back, my aerial shots, it's beautiful. Everything is ready to go, but I cannot shake that something is off. So I start Googling. I Googled the Dickens out of these names, which are, again, very specific and unique. So if there's going to be something on these people, Google would tell me. So Google did tell me. One of the names pulled up as born in Denton County in 1966 and owned this property that was the previous address, yada yada. So online and on paper, again, all of these names matched up. Then I receive a text from her and it says, I would really prefer that the buyer put down $10,000 in earnest money for us to accept an offer, because that to me will show that the buyer is serious. $10,000 is a lot of money to put down in earnest money for a price point of that. The price point was about $170,000. That's a lot of earnest money to put down, even for a lot. For someone who has maybe not sold property in a long time, I could understand, especially an older generation, if they were a little concerned, like, hey, I don't want to waste my time. I really want to make sure that somebody really wants this lot and they're serious. And then in the back of my head, I was like, they just want the cash. They think they're going to get $10,000 deposit that they can just run with. I thought, well, I'm going to fix that real quick, just like when I thought my request for IDs was going to fix that real quick. So I said, Just want to let you know how things work in Texas is that earnest money deposit goes straight to the title company and it's held there. Nobody touches it until either the transaction is terminated or it goes toward their closing, right? And I thought, okay, this is where she's going to terminate and say, oh no, thank you. Nope. She said, thumbs up, sounds great, moving forward. Okay, so it must not be what I think. A bit of a red flag that was like, okay, and again, justification. I went to all of social media accounts, right? Because most people have some kind of social proof. So I start searching Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn for these names, and nothing comes up for the first and last name. Whoop, whoop, red flag. But then also, they're an older generation who may not have social media. But then what I found when I just searched the first name is that the first name that she said was her husband, the only thing that pulled up in Facebook was women with that first name. And I was like, okay, that's weird. Like, this is a very unique name, but obviously there's probably 40 people that have Facebook accounts with this first name, but they're all women. And this is supposed to be a man. My next follow-up was again with the title company. And I said, I'm stuck in this position where I would love to move forward. This is my job. If this is a valid seller who needs to sell this lot, then I need to be responsible and timely. I have everything I need on paper to list this lot. I need to go stick a sign in the yard and figure this out. But if this is fraud, then I need to also do my job and not sell this lot out from under somebody else, if this person doesn't actually own this property. So I said to the title company, I'm like, what do you do if you're trying to verify somebody's identity? Like, what do you do? And she's like, well, ask for ID. And I'm like, done. I did. It all matches everything. The names match everything. And so I said, there's got to be some extra level of verification that we can do, because I don't want to get to closing and sign with these people that I've never met, and then somehow later on find out that these poor people have just had their $170,000 nest egg sold out from under them, and there's nothing we can do. For me, I can't in good conscience move forward with this, even though it's like I have no proof. Like, I have no concrete proof that something is off. The only thing I have is my gut. Don't ever ignore your gut. It's usually not wrong. Title and escrow talked to their attorneys and they said, okay, there is something that we can do. It's called remote online notary. So what they do is they request an online notary appointment where these people would show up on video with a mobile notary. They have to provide their identification, but the added layer, these identity verification questions that they would layer onto that with the remote notary to kind of flush this out. So here we are, 2 days later. This lady has been hot and heavy, ready to get this going as soon as possible. I let her know yesterday morning. I said, hey, title needs one more thing before we can list. Everything is ready to go. We're ready to get this on the market. They have one document that they need you to sign with the remote notary before we can actually list this live on the market. Crickets. Nothing. No responses. No acknowledgement of that appointment. The one thing, and I will reverse, because the one thing that had been my last straw for a little red flag was the day before, the night prior, I had messaged her and I said, hey, when the photographer went out, I noticed that there's a padlock on the gate and it's not a combo, it's a key. And since you are in Alabama, I'm wondering how you'd like to handle that, because when I list this property, I need to make sure that buyers have access to the property. They need to be able to open the gate and we need to be able to lock it back up. So I will need to put a combo lock on that gate, but the padlock there, unless you have a spare key somewhere around here, or you have, I've got to know what you would like to do with that. To which she responded the next morning, oh, sure, you can please hire a locksmith to cut the lock. When the lock is cut, you may put on your combo lock so that we can show buyers. I was like, oh, heck no, lady. I politely responded and I said, actually, legally, I cannot do that because I don't own this property and I don't have the authority to cut a lock. If you want to hire a locksmith to cut that lock, that's going to be your responsibility. If you would like some referrals, I'm happy to send some your way. No answer. Nothing. So then we have no answer on that, and we have absolute crickets from title reaching out to them by phone and email to try and schedule this online notary, which they don't necessarily know is an additional verification of identity, but it does require them to be on video in the presence of someone signing something and giving identification. So at this point, with no responses, we are just absolutely 100% assuming that this is complete fraud. My heart is like, who do I report this to? What can I do? How do I save these poor people who knows what these people are trying to buy with their identity and their names on passports that are not theirs, or how many other people they have. How many sets of passports do you have, right? The only thing I can think of right now is to go to that property and knock on the door and say, hey, were you trying to sell your property in crime? No. Okay, someone has your identity and they're trying to sell it out from under you. And I mean, the scary part of this whole situation is that as an agent, my job is to help my clients. So if my seller comes to me and says, hey, we need to get this on the market, like as soon as possible, we need to do yesterday, right? I would do it, and I'm going to get that done. I'm going to get everything done as quickly as possible. We're going to get it on the market, and I'm going to rock it. That's what I do. It's my job. I do that. This is what I do day in, day out, right? If I had not paid attention, if I was a transactional agent that only cared about the transaction, the numbers, the paper, the dollars, I would have listed this property immediately. I would probably have offers, and I would have gone on to close it and sell it, and no one would have been the wiser because they have passports. Their names match. And if I didn't listen to these red flags, if I didn't pay attention to my gut and start questioning things, these property owners could have lost $170,000 of their nest egg to these people. So that's for me, that's a scary thing, because I don't know how many other times this is happening when realtors are not paying attention, when somebody's not trusting their gut. So I posted this morning just on a story and just said, if your realtor ever asks you for identification, if you're asked to provide a driver's license to your agent before showing, especially if it's someone you don't know, please don't be offended, because number one, we're protecting you. Number two, we're protecting ourselves. We're protecting the other parties involved, but we're also protecting people to come, because if nobody asks those questions, what's to say that it's not going to be you next? If you own a lot or a house, a rental property somewhere that you're not currently living in and you're not paying attention, you would hope and pray that someone else is paying attention for you. So anyways, where we're at right now is I even talked to our local police chief this morning. It was kind of funny. I went to my networking meeting, and our speaker today was the local police chief, Argyle Police. And the topic on the screen was fraud. I was like, what are the odds? What are the odds? So, he was talking about all the different scams that they're seeing right now, and none of them was a selling your property out from under you scam. But at the end, I just said, hey, this is actually perfect time. This is what I'm dealing with right now. Like, what can we do? Like, is there anything that I can do? And he said, unfortunately, nobody will really do anything unless money has actually changed hands. So the only way in this case to prevent it is to catch it before it happens, which is kind of sad and a little bit scary. But it's just, a testament to, again, and I feel like I'm a broken record, but follow your gut. If your gut says something's off, follow it, right? If you are seeing red flags, every once in a while, your justifications will be like, yeah, sure, it's a little weird, but it's justifiable, and the other things match up, so that's fine. But if it's one red flag after another, pay attention, involve someone else, talk to someone else, get some, I'm talking to my broker, I'm talking to the title company. Things just don't line up, then they don't line up for a reason. And let me tell you, no transaction is worth the heartache of knowing that you could have done something to prevent it. Anyways, that is my story. That's my fraud story. Hopefully this is just an encouragement to people to pay attention, speak up if you see something, and involve other people. Involve other people in the transaction to help you kind of bounce things off and say, yeah, that's not right. I mean, the other thing that I forgot to mention that we were all kind of rumbling around and thinking after a while is that, the dates on this property that they had owned in Louisville was like purchased in 1995, right? And this guy had been born in Denton County, according to public records. And according to the passports that they sent me, they were both born in Texas. And so the question that we started all asking ourselves is, these people they were born in Texas, they have lived here their entire lives, they're in their 60s. According to all this information. Why don't they have a driver's license? How do they get around? They own a property and live in a property in Louisville, and they bought a vacant lot in Crum, which is almost, 45 minutes, probably an hour maybe. How do they get out there? Did they Uber? They're gonna Uber to work every day? Like, they have to have a driver's license. And then they're gonna move out of state and still not have a driver's license. So there was other layers of weird things, right? Again, some obscure person could probably explain all of those things, but when all those things are stacked up together and it just doesn't make sense, then it doesn't make sense. So anyways, that's my story. Hope you have learned something here. If nothing else, it's one of those wild, like, I've never experienced this before stories, but here now I can put that one in my, arsenal of things that I've dealt with over my real estate career. So I'm sure this 32-minute video will get chopped up in a billion pieces, and you'll probably be hanging on the edge of your seat every time you see a little clip, waiting to hear the next one. But that's my story, and I'm sticking to it. Let me tell you, I have gained so much more respect for my gut, and I hope that this is a good lesson for other people watching and listening, just to follow your gut, to do your homework,